What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Now, 2 days ago, I did the first installation of this series called Finding the Right Head Coach, Episode 1, Robert Saleh. And why I love Robert Saleh, I love him as a head coach, I would love for him to be the head coach. There are still dozens and dozens of coaches out there, assistant coordinators, coordinators and head coaches and assistants and all of these different guys that the Lions can take a look at and that the Lions can pursue as their next coach and for the guy to presume the head coaching duties for the 2021 season. Now, in today's episode, the second episode of this series, we will be going over the second big name to float around the Motor City, and that is, of course, Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. Now, before we get into talking about Eric Bieniemy and his strengths and weaknesses and what he would bring to this Lions team, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it helps the channel out more than you could know. So if you can do that, just take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. Without any further ado, let's get right into Eric Bieniemy and what he could do as the Detroit Lions head coach and what he could bring to this Lions team. Now, as I said, a lot of Detroit Lions fans, if they don't want Robert Saleh, most of them want Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Eric Bieniemy has been a Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator for the past 3 years, and for the past 3 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have had one of the best, if not the best, offenses in the NFL. In 2018, the Chiefs were first in yardage, they were first in points, and they were only 7th in turnovers, which is very, very good. And they had, obviously, Patrick Mahomes winning his first MVP in his first starting season. Now, in 2019, the Kansas City Chiefs were a little bit worse, but still very, very top of the NFL. They were 6th in yardage, 5th in points, and 3rd in turnovers. So a little less points, a little less yards, but they are not turning the ball over as much. Very efficient season, still a top 5 offense, still a top 3 offense in the NFL. It's still one of the best ones in the league in 2019. And of course, they did win the Super Bowl that year. Now, this year in the 2020 season, they have taken even another step up from where they were last season, as they are once again first in yardage. They are 3rd in points this season, and they have the second fewest turnovers. They are 2nd in turnovers in the NFL. They currently sit at a 9-1 record and look to be one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous team in the NFL. And they look like they have a very realistic and a very likely chance of repeating as Super Bowl champions. Now, obviously, those numbers look great. Those numbers look absolutely phenomenal, right? Eric Bieniemy has been the offensive coordinator and the mastermind behind a lot of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, behind a lot of what the Kansas City offense has done, and he has been kind of the brains behind this Kansas City arsenal that just seems to throw out weapon after weapon after weapon, where Patrick Mahomes can just throw it up without even looking at his target, and you get yards and points and this and that and accolades and wins, and it looks so good on paper, right? It looks phenomenal. The numbers look great, the stats look great, the tape looks great. The Kansas City offense is obviously one of the best in NFL history, especially over this past 3-year span. And obviously, with that being, with the Kansas City Chiefs being such a great offense, with Eric Bieniemy being a big part of why that offense is that way, a lot of Lions fans are looking to Eric Bieniemy to be the next head coach, to come in and be the guy that could save this franchise, to be the guy that turns it around, and maybe is the guy that makes Matt Stafford reach his full potential as a quarterback. Now, I do have a few issues with Eric Bieniemy. Of course, he is really good. And all of these things that I'm going to say, all of my negatives are going to be nitpicks, right? They're going to be real small details that I see, and some of them aren't even his fault. Some of them are just question marks that I have. Some of them are just, small nitpicks. None of these things are big reasons. None of these are reasons we should not hire him to be the head coach. And none of these are reasons that we should just look the other way and turn our heads and not even consider Eric Bieniemy. That's not what I'm saying when I critique Eric Bieniemy, because when I say this, it's going to be very minute and very small critiques, but these are some things I did notice about Eric Bieniemy in the situation he is in that make me question and make me at least second guess for a couple of seconds. Now, the first thing that I am a little questionable with Eric Bieniemy is that obviously Andy Reid is his head coach, and Andy Reid is an offensive-minded guy, right? Andy Reid has been an offensive coach. He's an offensive-minded coach, and he's obviously there if Eric Bieniemy needs help. Unlike Robert Saleh, where he has nobody to really turn to for help, Eric Bieniemy, if he gets flustered, if he gets, if he sees some defense he doesn't know how to handle, he can turn to a veteran and a older, more experienced coach in Andy Reid and see what he thinks. He can brainstorm with Andy Reid, and he always has that person to fall back on. He always has that security net in Andy Reid if something doesn't go right, and I'm not quite sure how much of the offense he is calling and how much of the offense Andy Reid is calling. Now, I know Eric Bieniemy is calling a lot of it. I know that he has a huge influence over the offense, but I'm not sure exactly what percentage is Eric Bieniemy and exactly what percentage is Andy Reid, because both of them are really good offensive minds, so I'm not sure who's calling what plays when, which makes me question it a little bit, because that's how it was with Matt Patricia, where he was calling some plays. Bill Belichick was calling most of the plays, but Matt Patricia looked good because Bill Belichick was there, because Bill Belichick was that security blanket that he could always fall back on. Matt Patricia looked really good as a coordinator, and that's why the Detroit Lions hired him, or that was one of the reasons the Detroit Lions hired him. Eric Bieniemy is in a very similar situation where he has a security blanket in Andy Reid to fall back on if he doesn't know what he's doing. He has that security blanket to fall back on if he's not sure what is going on. And, Eric Bieniemy, although he is really good, he's really smart, he's a great offensive coordinator, great offensive mind, that situation scares me a little bit, and maybe that's a little bit just because that's the situation Matt Patricia was in, but, that situation and that standard right there puts a little bit of a question mark there for me. Now, Andy Reid disciples tend to do much better than Belichick disciples. Andy Reid's disciples tend to go on and do really good things and win Super Bowls and get to really, really good records at least a few times in their career as a head coach. So I'm not too worried about it. Of course, Andy Reid has a much better track record of his coordinators going on to be better head coaches than Belichick does. But still, that scenario does scare me a little bit that, we just came off a guy that got a lot of help from his head coach. Would we be doing the same thing if we hired Bieniemy? Now, again, that's a very small critique. That's a very small question mark because, of course, he's an offensive mind. He's a good offensive mind. He calls a lot of the plays. You can see it on game day. But, that little thing scares me. That little thing makes me take a second look at Eric and just say, okay, well, is he in the same situation as Matt Patricia? And although I think he would be much better and much more prepared than Matt Patricia was, I still think that Robert Saleh is better because he doesn't necessarily have that security blanket to fall back on. Now, my second critique and my second thing with Eric Bieniemy is that he relies on his quarterback way too much, and as Lions fans, we want to develop the run game. We want to be really, really good as a rushing football team. We've wanted to get back to that identity for a long time. Obviously, there was the stat before Kerryon Johnson, before the 2018 season, that we didn't have a 100-yard rusher for, 5 years, whatever it was. We have not been a good running team for a very long time. We've relied on Matt Stafford for a very long time to carry this franchise, and more times than not, this franchise falls flat on its face because Matt Stafford is not capable of carrying all 52 other guys on the roster, including the coaches and the organization, on his back to a Super Bowl. He is a good quarterback. Matt Stafford is a great quarterback, but he cannot do everything. You cannot put everything on Matt Stafford's plate and tell him go win a Super Bowl because, you can't really do that with anybody. It's not like you could put anything on one. It's not like you can go to any quarterback in the NFL, put all the responsibilities of the franchise on his plate and say go win us a Super Bowl with all of this baggage. You can't do it, and Eric Bieniemy, for as good as he is, he does rely a lot on his quarterback to make plays in both the running and the passing game. And that's very similar to what the Lions have been doing. That's very similar to what Matt Stafford has had a situationally for his entire career, and that makes me question whether or not Eric Bieniemy can develop a run game and stick and commit to a run game to have that balanced offense that Stafford has never had before. Now, again, this is a small nitpick because Eric Bieniemy has shown that he can run a very efficient rushing offense. I can't remember what year, but at some point in his coaching career, at some point in Kansas City, they were 7th in rushing touchdowns and 6th in yards per attempt. I believe it was in 2018 was when that stat was a thing. So I know Eric Bieniemy can do a really good job. I know he can use an efficient run game, and I know he can coordinate a really efficient run game, but I have not seen him commit to the running game very often. I have not seen him commit to the running game, and obviously when you have Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek and Travis Kelce and this guy and that guy, and you have all the weapons you could ever want, want, obviously you're going to throw the football a lot, and I understand that, but I have not seen Eric Bieniemy truly commit to a running game that often, and that scares me a little bit. That pass-happy attitude scares me just a little bit because, again, that's what the Lions offense has been suffering from for a very, very long time. That's the offense Stafford has ran in for a very, very long time, and we've seen so far, more times than not, that kind of offense and that kind of approach to the football game isn't the right move for Detroit. Now, as I said, those were critiques, right? Those were slim, those were minor, those are question marks even that might not even be the case with, Andy Reid being that security blanket. I don't know for sure how much influence Andy Reid actually has on the play calling, but, those are some small question marks I have about Eric Bieniemy. Those are my two things that, don't turn me off from Eric Bieniemy. By no means am I saying he's going to be a bad head coach in the NFL. I think he'll be a great head coach. If the Lions hired him, I still think this team could make the playoffs in 2021. If the Lions hire him, they will definitely get better. They will definitely take steps forward. This offense for the Detroit Lions, if they hire Eric Bieniemy, will look a lot better because they will get tricky, they will get good, they will use pre-snap motion, they will look phenomenal, and they will look like a different unit in 2020 or in 2021. And by no means am I saying that you should not want Eric Bieniemy. If you want Eric Bieniemy, that is completely fine. If you want an offensive-minded head coach, Eric Bieniemy is the best guy available for the job. He is the best offensive-minded candidate right now as he is coordinating probably the best offense in the NFL at the moment. But again, those two things, with his security blanket in Andy Reid and his lack of showing me at least that he can commit to a running game for a season, those two things scare me just a little bit. And again, that doesn't turn me off from Eric Bieniemy. That doesn't tell me that he can't be a good head coach or that he shouldn't be the head coach of the Detroit Lions. But again, if you're going to evaluate a coach, you need to look at their strengths and their weaknesses. And while Eric Bieniemy has a lot of strengths, it has a lot of things going for him, he does have those two small weaknesses and two small cracks in his resume where I don't see that in Robert Saleh. With all that being said, though, that is all I got for you guys today. That is my coaching, that is my coaching review on Eric Bieniemy, the future coaching candidate, the future head coach candidate for the Detroit Lions. Let me know down in the comments, do you want Eric Bieniemy to be the head coach, or are you sticking with Robert Saleh or somebody else? Let me know your guys' opinion down in the comments below, and if you could, drop some more coaching suggestions for episode 3 and beyond. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Bye, guys.